Welcome. I am Crime Queen, and if you're joining us for the first time, it's the channel where we have fun with words and numbers, numerology to be precise. Okay, we are activating soulful love with the use of the scriptures and seeing how how it has impacted on our lives, on how we can um, use our knowledge of it through numerology to become better expressions and versions of who we truly are. So I am feeling on the brink of emotion right now of what has been transpiring through my, of course, search for knowledge. And of course, I started this and I'm still doing it with the notion of having fun in a positive way. But the insights have been they have been very profound and moving at times. And as it is in this presentation for me. So I have just recorded a short video in my insight that there are really 14 gods in Genesis of chapter 1 and 2. And of course, as everything else, it's good to substantiate or statements or notions when we have something that seem so outrageous and so out there. Basically, even with out there, the purpose of this presentation is to bring what's out there in here, within us. So I am getting um, the message that each act that had been performed, and not so much the act, but the construct of that act. For instance, when God said, it was mentioned like 10 times, I believe, the word God said in Genesis of chapter 1. And I've done the calculations before, and I believe it's chapter 1 that I am talking about and not inclusive of chapter 2, because it was chapter 2 that really showed me that there is another God initially in chapter 2, because there we had in Genesis of chapter 1 all about and God. And then we go into Genesis of chapter 2, then we see God Lord, and the God Lord who created the earth and the heavens. Whereas in Genesis of chapter 1 we have, and God created the heaven and the earth, singular in both instances. And later on we see the earth, which is the flip side to it. It's like everything was mirrored in Genesis of chapter 1 and Genesis of chapter 2. They are mirror aspects of each other. So this is what is coming to me right now. And not just right now, I saw this before. Now, the synchronistic thing that has happened, and it's very moving, and I'm like more or less shivering here, and I'm wondering whether it's the temperature or whether it's the thought processes or the realization. So as I have said before in my videos, that I am of 14 children and I am the fifth child. So I have always seen myself now as Eve, in that sense of being in this position here. And number 5, I have spoken about having 3 5s in my date of birth. In fact, my first name as well equals 5 in numerology. I don't think I said that part before. And yes, there are um, so many correlations with the story of Christ and Genesis, and of my father, the um, 10th child, so that correlates with Adam, heaven, hell, all that which is 10. But I'm also the eighth girl, eighth daughter, so the number 8 also coincides with my numerical, with my life path number, which is 8. And we see how it has been very profound in all these presentations that I have been doing, because the word God or the name God equals 8, and that is 17, which coincides in direct correlation with my life path number. And like as I say, God is here. So there are so many um, synchronistic convergence, if I'm explaining this correctly, so many parallels, so many um, numbers that just connect, direct, that have a direct correlation in my makeup with what I have been teaching now, and now particularly with the aspect of having been from a 14 um, the fifth child of 14 children. And of course, looking at the story of Christ, the lineage of Christ from generations of 14, and Christ comes from the generation of 14 thereabouts, if that makes sense. But when you read the genealogy, you see the 14 from King David, King Solomon, and so on. So something very startling happened to me, and I was writing, because I'm writing my next volume on the Crimson Light, and I was more or less compelled to re-examine the story of Job, which I had made reference to. And so I see the story of Job is really where perhaps the word job derived from, where we all are meant to have a job. We have been institutionalized to have a job, and it seemed like our main job is to really discover who we are, where we are going, and where we've been, to make sense of our existence. And that was the realization that came to me. The other thing that happened was that Job had lost his children, and I don't clearly remember if it was all, there were 10 children, but it does state in the end that he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. So I am trying to contain myself there. And so, with the realization of having 14 gods in Genesis, I was thinking about, well, what about how does that correlate with the story of Job? And then I realized that Job had 7 sons, 3 daughters, and then I sort of thought of Mother Eve. I actually spoke to Mother Eve and find out to speak to me, let me understand what's happening. And then I, of course, mirroring Mother Eve, I could see myself central in the sense of my position as number 5. And as it happens, out of the 14 children, that my mother had. 3 sons have passed, and now we are with 7 sons and 4 daughters, including myself. But what makes it so um, so relative is that I am of a different father to my other siblings. All of these siblings, the 7 sons, which were 10 sons, and the other 3 daughters. So that would mean this is a direct mirror of Job's story of having 7 sons and 3 daughters. I suppose since I've always felt a little bit different, it's okay for me to understand that yes, I sort of stand out and perhaps is not counted in some sort of way. In that job equation, perhaps I'm not quite sure, of course, or whether it's really that I have a responsibility to really work out that job description. And so I am sensing that I'm just trying to work out from from the story of Genesis, because I have sort of located about 9 gods in Genesis of chapter 1. So there are 9 gods in Genesis of chapter 1, and that would mean another 4. So another 4, yes. 4 plus 9 would be 14. 4 plus, no, 5, excuse me, 5. 5 plus 9 is 14. So that would mean there would be 5 gods reflected in Genesis of chapter 2, which I believe would be the word formed, the one who formed, and I'm going to have to, but the word formed would be there, and I know the word moved and made. So basically, there would be copy or mirror aspect of those gods as well, because I know for sure that there is made and blessed as well, and formed and ended and rested and rest. So those would be the other gods that would reflect in Genesis of chapter 2. Okay, so the God rest, and the God formed, the God separated, and the God ended, and the God blessed. So basically, it's really I just find it very um, startling, the correlation of how this seemed to be mirroring in my own personal life. So I won't be saying much more on this right now. In fact, it's 14 minutes, 14:41. Oh God, on the timer. So it's not going to end on 14 right now, but I've just spotted 14 and 41 on there. So thanking you for watching. I'm obviously going to look into this and bring you more information. So while I, yes, okay, if it seems a lot to take in, let's just smile it and let's just smile it off. Yes, okay, thank you.